All right, so greetings, everybody. This is Pastor Steve from Ahava, and I wanted to do a quick talk about the conclusion of the Feast of Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles that you may be more familiar with. So this is the last evening. The Hoshana Rabbah is what it's commonly referred to, and that means the Great Salvation. So when Yeshua was riding into town during Passover, they were singing Hosanna in the highest, right? And so they were singing about the salvation of God coming. And so this day is the conclusion of it. And we always talk about how Yeshua was likely born during this time, that he would have been born during the first day. And then at the end of his seventh day, going into his eighth day, he would have been circumcised, which is Shemini Atzeret. So these are separate feasts, but they kind of work together. So Sukkot is 7, and at the conclusion of it, there's this little one, just a single day called Shemini Atzeret. And so it is just called the 8th day of the assembly. And so it's just talking about the gathering of the assembly. But there's a lot that we could talk about here. And first is, what is the 8th day? Well, the 8th day is an anomaly. Eighth day there's an 8th day at the conclusion of Passover. There's an 8th day at the conclusion of Sukkot. And we see all the symbolism of Yeshua's birth, his coming and dwelling among us, and then how he's going to return and dwell amongst us again. But what about this 8th day? Well, there's just not really anything talked about it. And it is the celebration of the giving of the Torah, the giving of the word. So, like I said a second ago, he was born on the first day of Sukkot and then would have been circumcised on this 8th day in which the Israel celebrates the giving of the word. So we see all of these parallels in here. But there's something that's very significant that happened on that 7th day, this Hoshana Rabbah, which would have been today and into tonight. And in the book of John, chapter 7, somewhere around 34, they were. It says it was the last day, the great day of this 7th day feast of Sukkot. And during this time, they would do the water drawing ceremony. And so they would go down to the pool of Siloam, they would gather up the water, and then they would do this great big ceremony of reading all of these Psalms 113 through 118. And it would just be a great time of rejoicing, so much so that a rabbi once said, if you've never experienced the water drawing ceremony, you have never experienced true rejoicing. And so there would be rabbis dancing and twirling fire and all kinds of stuff, all the way up to the temple. And so the priests are carrying this water, and then all the while they're singing these psalms. Well, if you go look at Psalms 118, it speaks about the salvation of God, the Yeshua of God, over and over again. And so they get up there and they're getting ready to do this water libation, and all of a sudden Jesus stands up and he says, all you who are thirsty, come and drink from me, and I will give you rivers of living water. And it was just, so he silenced the entire city of Jerusalem, and he stands up and makes this declaration. And it says at that point, going forward, it said that some came to believe in him at that moment. So what was so significant about that moment, that when he stood up and makes this declaration, all of you who will believe on me, out of your belly will flow rivers of living water, and you will never thirst. It's because they're speaking and singing about the great salvation of God, Hoshana Rabbah, the great salvation. Salvation is the name Yeshua. Yeshua is salvation. Now Yeshua stands up in the midst of all of this feast. Everybody knows he's been talking and preaching, speculation about him being Messiah. And now after they hear about the salvation of God, they're rejoicing over the salvation of God. And now you have the salvation of God, Yeshua, salvation, standing up, basically declaring himself the Messiah without saying those words. And that's why some of those, it says, accepted him that day. And so this day is a very significant day. It's also not, I don't think by accident, that last year, October the 7th, events that happened in Israel happened on this day. It happened on the time of their great salvation. And so I think God is about to pour out his spirit anew in this day, and he's restoring these things back to his church, back to the original Messianic Judaism. And he shook Israel that day, on the day of great salvation, and then leading into this great assembly. And let me talk a little bit about that. So that 8th day is the unknown day. And how we kind of see this playing out is in common eschatological thought, and that is that there's going to be 6 days of human history, equal to 6,000 years of human history. Then there's going to be a 1,000-year millennial reign. of Messiah. And all of these are literal. They're not figurative. They're not metaphorical. They are a real 7,000 years. And so we're about to experience that 7,000th year. And we see all of this play out in the book of Revelation all the way up until about 19 or 20, chapters 19 or 20. But it's 21 and 22 that seem to take on a different tone. And that's where we really see the new heaven and the new earth all coming down. And then it says there will be a temple, but there will be no priest, there will be no sacrifices, there will be no sun or moon or any of those things. That time's different. And the rabbis refer to that time as that eighth day. That's eternity. And so, and as the rabbis refer, the eighth day of the assembly is kind of a way of them looking forward to not the kingdom now of Messiah, but the world to come. You'll hear that terminology a lot from the rabbis, the world to come. That's not the Messianic age. The world to come is that eighth day. And so that's one of those things that's in addition to the 7 days of Sukkot. So again, you got the 7 days of Sukkot, the first day being the likely time when Messiah was born, and then the conclusion of that seventh day of it, they celebrate the giving of the word and when he would have been circumcised. And then again, seeing a lot of the events, especially that big one of the water drawing ceremony. So if you haven't studied the Feast of Sukkot and seen some of these things and the way Yeshua spoke and why he spoke and taught at certain times, I would encourage you to start looking into it. So anyway, happy holidays.
When in the Central Arkansas area, we would like to invite you to join us in person. Shabbat service begins at 1 p.m. each Saturday, with Oneg at 3 p.m. and Torah study at 4 p.m. All service times are Central Standard Time. Thanks for watching,